If cinema and television, as the dominant media of the 20th century, shaped and reflected the cultural sensibilities of the era, how do 21st century media help to shape and reflect new forms of sensibility? Various attempts to identify the defining characteristics of these newer media, and hence their salient differences from older media, emphasize that they are essentially digital, interactive, networked, ludic, miniaturized, mobile, social, processual, algorithmic, aggregative, environmental, or convergent, among other things. Recently, some theorists have begun to say simply that they are post-cinematic. This perspective is not without its dangers. For example, the term post-cinema may seem reductive, too blunt to account for the long and variegated list of adjectives that characterize our current media landscape. And yet the term has a clear advantage in that it helps us to recognize this environment as a landscape rather than merely a jumbled collection of new media formats, devices, and networks. To say that 21st century media are post-cinematic media does not, however, deny the heterogeneity of elements composing the landscape. Rather, post-cinema is a summative or synoptic notion of a special sort, one that allows for internal variety while focusing attention on the cumulative impact of the newer media. To employ the term post-cinema is, first of all, to describe this impact in terms of a broad historical transformation. But rather than positing a clean break with the past, the term post-cinema asks us more forcefully than a notion like new media to think about the relation rather than mere distinction between older and newer media regimes. Post-cinema is not just after cinema, and it is not in every respect new. At least not in the sense that new media is sometimes equated with digital media. Instead, it is the collection of media and the mediation of life forms that follows the broadly cinematic regime of the 20th century, where following can mean either to succeed something as an alternative or to follow suit as a development or a response in kind. Accordingly, post-cinema would mark not a caesura, but a transformation that alternately abjures, emulates, prolongs, mourns, or pays homage to cinema. Thus, post-cinema asks us to think about new media, not only in terms of novelty, but in terms of an ongoing, uneven, and indeterminate historical transition. The post-cinematic perspective challenges us to think about the affordances and limitations of the emerging media regime not simply in terms of radical and unprecedented change, but in terms of the ways that post-cinematic media are in conversation with and are engaged in actively reshaping our inherited cultural forms, our established forms of subjectivity, and our embodied sensibilities. Post-cinema. Theorizing 21st Century Film is an open-access collection edited by Shane Denson and Julia Lyda and published by Reframe Books. The volume brings together a wide range of essays that engage critically with the notion of post-cinema. Contributors explore key experiential, technological, political, historical, and ecological aspects of the transition from a cinematic to a post-cinematic media regime and articulate both continuities and disjunctures between the first and second centuries of moving image media.